Hello, everyone. I'm Nevenka from Started, and I'd like to welcome you to another Tesla Nation R&D event where we feature teams and cutting-edge projects that are being built right here in Serbia. It is my great pleasure to introduce you our guests for today, Zoran and Niko from Microsoft Development Center in Serbia, where they work as senior product managers in Azure Data team. And they will be telling us about what it looks like to work on such big a product on that big a scale that is being used by hundreds of thousands of people all around the world, and how they are setting up their internal processes, especially from their perspective of product managers, and what are some of the ins and outs of working in their team. Hopefully this will serve as an inspiration, but also a resource for some teams that might not be as big as MDCS, but that are working on some cutting edge stuff. So I'm really looking forward to the presentation, and I'm sure it will be useful to all the engineers, product managers, entrepreneurs who are with us today. Thank you to our audience for joining us. And thank you, Niko and Zoran, for making the time to make today's presentation and share your insights with our community. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. All right. Shall we start?
Yes.
Dear friends,
where's our presentation?
I just hear some echo strangely, but anyway. All right, so let's start the presentation. Let's do you hear that, Zoran?
Nope. Sounds good for me.
Okay. All right. Because I am okay. I'm sorry for that. That was something strange. I'm with StreamYard right now. All right. Anyway, I'm going forward. So, dear friends, welcome to Tesla Nation R&D event number 4. Today, we have a session on how our global product successfully built. My name is Niko Neugebauer. I'm a senior product manager at Azure SQL product group here at Microsoft. I mean, I can describe me in different ways, but I will describe myself as just another IT data professional who happens to love and enjoy Microsoft data platform. I say even way too much that after many years of working with it, I switched aside and I joined Microsoft. On the screen, you will find the contacts to connect with me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zoran Rilak. Like Niko, I'm a senior PM at Azure SQL Product Group at Microsoft. I came to do product via a path that started programming, and then I was enamored by programming. I learned how to become a competent software engineer and then an acceptable product owner. And then I learned that the best way to actually for me to make quality impact is to get out of their way and let the experts do their thing, which is not to say that product managers don't do a whole lot. This is a common misconception that we hope we will dispel. I'm passionate about digital transformation and technology that serves humans rather than the other way around. So back to you, Niko.
All right. With that, just a little overview of our agenda today. First, we will start explaining you with where our product is and what it means. So like the industry, etc. Then we'll go into the explanation of why would you need a product manager. Then we'll dive into the research preparation and the product development itself. And in the final part, we will explain to you what it is that creates the product life cycle and overall what it is like to be a product manager at Microsoft. With that, let's talk about the database space and industry. I would say, and I think some of you might disagree, that it's one of the oldest IT departments around. You might say, wait, hold your horses. What about the hardware? What about the network? And I'll tell you, well, one of the oldest, because you still need software to make it work, right? And we call the whole area as information technology, and information consists of data. So when you create this super duper coolest web application or mobile application, what do you do with the data? Will you store it somewhere? Probably. Zoran, where would we store it? Will we use a app center? I think
I don't know.
probably not.
Something has to do with data.
Yes, I think the word that even describes the physical space for the hardware and for the networking parts is called data center. Has something to do with data, and that points to our industry. So let's see what the databases can be. Databases themselves can be based on different models. Relational, that's the key word that is being used to describe the database we are working on. But there are also non-relational. Graph, key pair, one of my favorite is the columnar, also the object ones, etc., etc. But there are also different workload types, and databases can be classified based on them. For example, the most popular for the websites is the operational one. You can get tens, hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of transactions at the same time. So a big number of transactions and a lot of communication. That's operational. The analytical is a different type. It's where you analyze typically a larger amount of data with smaller amount of transaction. It's not the only workload types. That's why we use the word basic, but they kind of give you impression. So databases can be also classified as simple when they work with a single model and single workload type, or they can be complex. There can be supporting multiple models and supporting multiple workload types. So the product that Zoran and me are working on is called Azure SQL Managed Instance, and it's based on absolutely amazing Microsoft SQL Server. Microsoft SQL Server has a very rich history. It has started as a collaborative project in the end of the 80s. And you can see on this little page how it has been evolving from version to version, starting with 16 bits, evolving to 32, eventually adding like analytical engine, different engines, and becoming even the evolving into the platform as a service offerings that I will explain you right away. So at Microsoft, we have this brand, Azure SQL. Azure SQL englobes our public cloud offering. It involves infrastructure as a service, or called IaaS or IaaS. This is basically, you can still run your SQL server like you run in the data center, but you can put it inside the virtual machine in our public cloud. But there is also a platform as a service offering with Azure SQL Database offering 3 different flavors like pre-provisioned, serverless, and even hyperscale, which allows you to reach with a single database 100 terabytes, and then Azure SQL Managed Instance. This is basically a same SQL server that our customers have been using for over 30 years, but it's managed. You would say, Niko, what do you mean managed? Managed is a part of the platform as a service. Our customers receive a rich environment, a surface that they can run their operation, query, analytics, whatever they need. But we, Microsoft, provide them through the SLA, the service that we will give a level of abstraction from the hardware, from the operating system it's being run on. We will run and manage it. We will also keep it evergreen and secure by patching it constantly and keeping it up to date. The task that a lot of small and big firms struggle to keep up in the modern times. So you might ask, oh, well, probably you are running this product like in the middle of nowhere. Well, not. our competitors are fierce. I will not even call any names, but these are the top of the top of the top. I mean, we really deeply appreciate our competitors. They help us to evolve and deliver to our customers a great product. But once again, the competition is truly, truly fierce. So the goals of the product that we are delivering is that the people who are running SQL servers on their own data centers or on IaaS or IaaS, so within the SQL virtual machine, they can migrate and modernize their workload in order to take care and focus on what they understand truly well, their business, or tune their workload, and not caring about the high availability, about the evolution of the product. We will deliver it to them. So we kind of like enable our customers to leverage this new paradigm without disruption to their operations or breaking their bank. With that, how are global products built successfully? That's the question, isn't it, Zoran?
I would agree with you, Niko. And I'll take this as a cue to give us a brief overview of what actually a product manager does. And then we're going to rest the more specific piece of content on what a product manager does specifically in Microsoft and in Azure. But it's useful to have a framework around which to talk. So if I were at gunpoint and asked to define what a product manager does, I would say a product manager establishes and leads the way for a product and its users to succeed. Those two are inextricable. A product succeeds when its users succeed and vice versa. And to do so, a product manager does a lot of really various things, and they're not necessarily an expert in any one area. Instead, a product manager needs to be able to communicate and work with the experts in many various areas that we're going to mention down the road, while ensuring that the experts' time and effort are well spent to reach the desired outcome. That is a good outcome for both the product and its users. So four specific qualities or four specific attributes of a product manager that I would like to point out are A, that person is outcome driven. I already mentioned outcome a couple of times. So the team's efforts must combine to reach a desired outcome. Who owns the path to this outcome? The team does. Who owns the achievement of this outcome? It's the product manager who is responsible to actually making sure that everything is done the way that it can be. Next, a product manager is also both strategic and tactical. There's an interesting mix. If you were to look at both Niko's and mine's calendars, you would see that our days are punctuated, sometimes even painted over with meeting invites and with various engagements throughout the day that don't at all need to seem very strategic. But we need to make sure that those meetings and the events combine into something that's more strategic and that leads us towards the objective. If I want to put it more graphically, if a PM is always seen to be putting out fires, then that PM better be clearing the way to the fire hose. Otherwise, the house is going to burn down. Next, a PM is also people-centric. A people-centric means that a PM should be less concerned with the technology as such and more concerned with the people. And this means people in the team, people in the adjacent teams, people as users, as customers are also people. And folks who talk, when someone within the organization talks to a PM, they really shouldn't be feeling like they're talking to a wall. The product manager is the person who should be the most receptive of all for an engineer, for a legal person, for anyone, for a salesperson, a person who is able to understand them and give them something that gives value back. This is a very important quality for a product manager. And the product manager also relatedly needs to be empathetic. We build software for people to use. And even a big company has a face, right? It's a face of a CEO. It's a face of the folks from the procurement. It's a face of the angry Steve from whatever department who wants to talk to the engineering and see, ask when something going to get fixed. So a PM really needs to understand and be able to empathize with those people, and be able to ask the question why and drive this further. Niko is going to expand on this idea when he talks about the research and preparation. But a PM knows that all technology is only as good as its ability to serve and satisfy a real human need. Now, on the right-hand side, there's a list of the things that a PM is not. They're not an inventor, they're not an engineer, they're not a project manager, they're not a spokesperson, they're none of these things, but importantly, they need to be able to speak all these languages. Let's move on to the next slide. Thanks, Niko. So again, continuing on this, who needs a product manager? Well, I would dare say that everybody does need product management. Not everybody necessarily needs a product manager. If you're bootstrapping, starting a company, if you're a budding entrepreneur, or even an ongoing entrepreneur, you will understand, you will realize that a lot of these things that we will talk about or have already talked about are things that you had to grapple with. So in smaller companies and startups, it's not very common to have a dedicated role of product manager, but you will be doing product management work. Someone will have to be doing that. In larger companies, it becomes a dedicated role, and this role is interesting in that it usually has very little to no direct authority, and there's no saying, because I said so. A product manager really doesn't get to say that this has to be done because of that and that. A product manager really leads by creating consensus, merely by the fact that they're surrounded by experts who all know their job, and you don't get to steer an expert by commanding them what to do. We all know that. So building consensus is key. And again, how does a PM build consensus? By speaking various languages and being receptive, being able to understand and to convey and tie everything in one bundle that, again, changes over time, but folks can understand why we're moving things in a certain direction. If you care to read, there's a list of small things and different areas that a PM is going to be expected to be at least to some degree proficient in, to the right-hand side, but let's just use that as an illustration because we'll have ample time to go over them later on. Niko, back to you.
Let's talk about the research and preparation. So the first task for a product manager is to formulate a defensible hypothesis that doing something, and let's call it X, will bring more value to the customers than anything else that would be spent with comparable resources and comparable time. You need to formulate this hypothesis and you need to go and research it. You need a proof. There is a good saying, and I love it personally, in God we trust, everyone else must bring a data. And this is one of the key things that I think that MDCS is living. You need to bring and find hardcore data that proves or defends your hypothesis. So how do you do the research and preparation? First and foremost, you talk to the customers. We need to understand what the toughest challenges the customers are facing. And there is a small but very important key. Sometimes the customers will tell you one thing and we need to translate it, because sometimes people go to the doctor and say, you know what, dear doctor, my hand hurts. And good doctor will focus not just on the pain, but it will he, she, or they analyze the whole body and say, you know what, maybe you need to get more sleep. So we need to translate, just like Zoran explained minutes ago, we need to translate this feedback from the customers into what they really want to achieve and how to make the biggest number of customers happy. We talk to our brilliant engineers. We got absolutely incredible engineers, and they get absolutely amazing ideas of something that they would like to develop, or maybe there is a significant improvement to an existing feature that they would like to deliver to the customers. We have some telemetry because we are platform as a service, PaaS service. We do lift up the telemetry, and it will allow us to get a better performance, to optimize it, to optimize for customer experience. So we'll need to do research, to buddy maybe with the data scientists and do the research and extract the meaning, extract the insights. We talk to our internal account teams. How do they see the world? Maybe we're living in a bubble, and they will tell us, you know what, I never heard from my customers that. Another important feedback channels are our MVPs. These are the group of the elite specialists. We call them MVPs because they are Microsoft's most valuable professionals. These are like super users that they spend their even free time on writing, presenting, publishing something about our product, or giving feedback directly to us. We do present at conferences such as this one and different ones, and we learn from the feedback. That's why if you want, please give us feedback on our product, on our ways. We really appreciate it. We do read a lot of competitive research because, as I told, fierce competition, gotta know what we are doing, where we are. And we get a lot of really important feedback from the different relevant teams, from the organization and department-wide motions. We also care about the pricing, about the positioning. We need to talk to everyone to understand, and as just Zoran explained, we need to converge and arrive to a single point of truth for the product to advance further. The bottom line for the research and preparation is not that like you did this list and there is, of course, there are many more items and like, oh, I'm done, check, I'm going to vacation. No way. You need to do it continuously, perpetually, even while delivering the product. There will be some feedback and you will need to incorporate it. You will need to adjust the product. With that, let's go to the product development. Zoran?
On that, thank you, Niko. On that, assume that we've done all the research and we've discovered the next big thing or the next gold nugget or the gold vein. How do we go about actually exploiting that and offering that to our customers? Well, I'm going to talk about three broad phases. And the first one, obviously covered by Niko, discovery and ideation, or research and preparation. This phase, I'm not going to rehash what Niko said, but I do want to explain that as this phase progresses, you have this powerful tool at your disposal in Azure and in Microsoft that we use internally. It's not a very complex tool. It's a series of meetings that are actually excellent meetings, and we call them scenario reviews. What happens is that once you have figured something out and you believe that you have evidence enough to support the hypothesis that a particular direction of development or improvement or even maybe retiring something should be explored, we compose what we call a scenario review, and we call up a meeting of a scenario review. In this meeting, we present our findings from the research. When we say there is this value proposition that we believe can be achieved, and we have looked at the data that says such and such and such, and we invite you, the folks present at the meeting, to try and tear this construction of ours down and try to find holes in it. Tell us why it's not a good idea to do this. Folks present in the meeting will be our teammates, will be other stakeholders in the company, will be possibly members from other adjacent and friendly teams within the Azure org or Azure SQL org. It's going to be an internal meeting. You're going to invite also engineering heads, folks who are engineering managers, experts in the area that you're targeting with this. So as these meetings go, and you can have several along the way, the point of this meeting is to settle on a decision. Are we going to progress? Are we going to move further with this or not? And when I say move further, that means at some point in the future, not necessarily right now. To end this up, if we have actually decided that something should be done, we ended up by co-writing a functional specification that says this new product, yada, 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 should behave like this, and this is written by the product manager and the engineering together. When this document exists, then we can put it on the back burner and just put it in the development queue and say, okay, let's talk about how soon this can be built. And with this, let's move on to the next slide to talk about the actual implementation. So when the implementation actually commences, a product manager is far from being off the hook. A product manager is still there to collaborate with the team, to clarify the intent behind the functional specification and the scenario together, to remove any uncertainties, to decide if a project scope needs to be changed, which happens more often than we would like, but it does happen. How does it change? Do we cut something out? Do we move something to the future version? How do we make this still a reasonable offering, or do we just move the deadline? concurrently with this, a product manager still works and keeps working on the rest of the go-to-market strategy. So there's a whole laundry list of things that a product manager should take care of before the release date. I'm just going to count them here. Let's just talk about some of them. Collaborate with pilot customers. I have this more in the next section. Documentation, code samples, best practices, how-tos, all those things are written and co-written by the product manager. Engage with and train customer support. Customer support is a big stakeholder. Customer support can put a showstopper and they say, we do not allow this feature or this product to go out because we cannot support it. We can't support it. We don't have the capacity to support it. It's unsupportable, whatever. It doesn't go out. So you actually need to persuade customer support in good terms, of course. You need to prove it to them that a product or feature that you're proposing to roll out can be supported and can be done so continuously over time without overexerting customer support engineers. Next, you need to plan the announcements with the marketing team. You need to train the field, that is our sales. You need to provide materials, give them demos, tell them how this thing should be communicated to the users. Contact the partner network, contact the MVP network that Niko mentioned previously. There's a legal review, there's a security review. And then perhaps the sweet time is when you get to pick, when are we going to release this? At what point in time are we going to actually say, okay, this is when it goes out? There's a back and forth around picking the dates, but and Niko knows this. There's a back and forth around this, but essentially you want to pick a date that helps you augment the message. You know, just the fact that Azure or Microsoft is releasing something does not mean that it's going to reach their audience. So we actually need to plan how this gets down and how it gets announced, who gets to hear about it. Can we make sure that our target audience is timely notified about it, and so on and so forth. Then comes the time for release. After the release, again, a PM is not off the hook. A PM continues evaluating the impact of a feature and sometimes even pivots if needed. For this, we will use the success metrics that we've defined during the research preparation and implementation. We will use the market feedback, market information, user feedback, customers information, partners feedback, whatever is possible. And this actually is quite the same as doing the research all over again. We also evangelize and amplify. When a feature is out, we still need to incorporate it into our presentations. We need to give talks about it. We need to blog about it, and continuously over time, we need to keep educating both the audience and us about what it is that we have built and what it is that the customer actually may have wanted in the first place. So there's this continuous back and forth once a feature is out. A PM keeps involved on product improvements, next milestones. Obviously, that's like doing all of this again. And bug fixes, a PM is there specifically when you're on call. We have this rotation for on call, both the engineers and the PMs do. Being on call means you're there to assist the customers, you're there to assist the customer support. If there's something that was not handled by one of the multiple support levels, if it finally reaches the engineering and the PM, the engineers and the PM, then that's actually a very high priority thing. So a PM is there to assist, and the engineers are there to assist to fix it. And that's it. Let's move on to a product lifecycle. I may already foreshadowed this. We at Azure, we consider four major components, four major phases in the life cycle of a product. The first two are not required. Private preview and public preview, it's possible, it's allowed to skip them, but usually we don't. Here's why. A private preview is a small sampling of a product that's already developed and stable. So you need to have a developed and stable product to actually private preview it. The purpose of a private preview is to learn about the thing that you're about to release from the early adopters. So private preview is an opportunity for a product manager to invite, with a golden ticket, if you will, a select few customers with whom Microsoft has signed an NDA to participate in this private preview. Those customers do not get support. They do not get official Azure support, but they do get one-on-one support by the product manager. And this is an opportunity to learn what the customers have wanted. Are we resolving their issues, or are we kind of a little bit off the mark? Also importantly, when you're in private preview, we do not offer service level agreements, or these features are exempt from service level agreements, warranties, and they're actually supplemental terms of use that apply for all previews across Azure. If a project graduates to public preview, then it gets released to the broader audience, generally across all 60 regions. There may be exceptions depending on the technical ins and outs. And at this point, this is not done to test the scale of the product. We are expected, and you're expected to actually have it baked and ready and scale worthy, so that it supports hundreds, thousands, millions of customers. Typically, again, so a public preview is also exempt from SLAs and warranties, but it is fully supported. So what we say to the customers is, you can contact our customer support if you're using this public preview feature. Sure, our customer support is going to help you, but please do not use this in production, because we still cannot back the functionality from this functionality that we're offering with financially backed service level objectives. So we still can't promise it's going to be fully right there. And we do this primarily to protect the customers from any bugs or incompatibilities that we may not have yet discovered. After that, the feature graduates to general availability. It becomes available everywhere. It's supported by financially backed service level objectives. That means if the availability of a feature falls below a certain threshold, you get some money back or credits back from Azure. It's officially supported and all that. And then after that, the last stage is retirement. Retirement is a demanding process that cannot start less than 3 years in advance of when you actually want to pull the plug on a feature or service. You need to have a replacement service already or a feature in GA. So you need to prove that if you're going to pull the plug on this, there has to be a way for customers who have built their solutions on top of this to adjust and adapt and continue their business to some degree. Ideally, this is going to be a successor product. That depends. There is also a dotted line from public preview to retirement. It's possible, although very unlikely, and I've never seen one. I've never seen someone retiring a public preview. Usually, you do your research well ahead of time. Back to you, Niko.
So, dear friends, what do you think it feels like to be a product manager at Microsoft? And at this point, I think we would like to make a small stop and get some comments or thoughts before going forward. Any comments so far? I can't see anything. Well, feel free to post them, but I suggest we go forward. So what it is like to be a product manager at Microsoft. You deliver ideas and suggestions. You do the customer research. You do the product preparation. You define and write a paper on customer experience. You help define and achieve goals. You do the product development. You deliver and accompany the product through its life cycle. You do run the previews. You do deliver presentation. All of that, all of the things we just have mentioned through these presentations and more, they're part of the experience to be a product manager. So what does it take to be a product manager at Microsoft? It means to deliver all of those things and more. So the last question, kind of like in this presentation we are putting here, what it is like to be a product manager, is we decided to put two things to explain the role from a different angle. First of all, you are hired because of some of your existing characteristics, something that you are going to bring the value to the company and to the concrete product you will be helping to design and shape. You will get some tasks to deliver based on your already existing characteristics. That's one important part. But even more important is you are hired because of your future potential and your capabilities of learning. And you are expected to learn, innovate, to grow. you will be given tasks that there is no single answer and there is no clear path to achieve. You need to, trail it forward, find out the way, define it, and lead a product, a feature to go into that direction. So the balance of them, of these two things, it's what it is like to be a product manager at Microsoft. With that, thank you so much for suffering with us, as to say, during this presentation. We are very open for the questions and any comments, if you have any.
Seconded. Let's give it a couple more tens of seconds to see if anyone chimes in. All right. Well, we have shared our LinkedIn and Twitter handles. So we are open. Feel free to reach out to us. Questions, comments, all are welcome. And thank you for attending.
Thank you very much.